What's up, folks? Welcome back to On Texas Football. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Pleased to be joined by fellow lifetime Longhorn, the young prodigy C.J. Vogel, and our own coach, former high school football coach at Vernon, Capel, Brownwood, Belton, Rotan. Also played college football at Abilene Christian, coached there as well, and was on the staff at the University of Texas for multiple head football coaches. Now you can catch his work at ShipleyRanches.com. It's our own coach, head coach Bob Shipley. What's going on, Coach? How you doing?
Hey, man, doing good. I just got to give a shout out to one of our viewers. Incredible story, Dion Barbie. Actually, Dion Barbie, you know, the kid's wife passed away, and I got remarried, almost 2 years ago, and her maiden name was Barbie. That's kind of cool. But anyway, Dion Barbie bought the house that we lived in when I was coaching at Belton, and somehow in a closet or up on a shelf, cabinet drawer, somehow, somewhere, Knucklehead and me left Jordan's national championship locker plate in that house somewhere. And Dion is a big Longhorn fan, loves the show, got in touch with me, and got the information to have it returned. So he'll send it to me, and I'll give it back to Jordan. I probably ought to keep it because Jordan will just probably put it in a closet or something. But thank you, Dion. Thank you so much for your kindness and for your heart to return that back, because that's something that Jordan won't care about, but I promise you his boys will.
That is a great story. What did he tell you where he found it in?
I don't know. I don't know where. We've just emailed back and forth.
Wow.
I don't know exactly where it was in the house, but I mean, I'm a knucklehead to leave something like that behind. And hey, Dion, I'll just tell you, if you find anything else, you can keep it. I mean, unless of course it's something like this. If you find $100 bill, keep it, bro.
Yeah. Well, something irreplaceable like that.
That's right.
You're just a great dad. Is what you are, Coach. Because that's cool keeping up with that stuff. Even if he doesn't value it now, he'll value it down the line. My dad has just recently given me a bunch of stuff that he had been keeping, newspaper clippings, all kind of stuff, and he gave it to me. Now that I have a daughter, hopefully one day it'll mean something to her. But that's pretty cool, man. It gives me the chills right there. It gives me some feels.
Yeah,
right
it's cool. Yeah, Dion Barbie, Belton,
Okay.
Texas. Thanks, brother.
That's awesome.
That is good. Shout out to Dion, man. That's a great story there, because that is cool, man. I have I got a lot of the stuff in here. But I got kind of a box with all kind of stuff. Now it doesn't mean much to anybody. It ain't worth nothing to anybody except for me. But it does say that at one time in my prime, I accomplished some things. So I do understand that, Coach. That's really cool, man. So and thank you to the Longhorn fan, Dion, who not only watches us and is a part of the On Texas family, but has a kind soul and went out of his way to try to return that to Coach, because you know how much it meant. That's a great way to start the show, Coach. Good vibes to start the show. Good stuff there. All right, you guys know how it works. As you know, it's a family thing, so the show belongs to you. The Winning Drive it in any direction you want to. Launch your questions, comments, super chats, jump to the front of the line. You can interrupt the show at any time. We're all a little distracted, of course, at this time. Longhorns up 1-0 on Tennessee in the SEC tournament right now, top of the second inning. So we'll all be a little distracted. I almost consider it kind of a in-game, kind of a live watch together. So we'll be doing that, as well as talking some Texas football and talking about some other things. But feel free, throw out baseball comments, reactions, and discussions about the game, because yes, no doubt it's on right now. I'm watching the game too, and I'm sure Coach and CJ are paying attention to it as well. All right, so but we'll get into a lot of different things. And I think one of the first things that we'll talk about early on, there is some college football playoff discussion. There have been some changes in the college football playoff format that we have to get to a little bit. We'll talk about that also, but first we'll talk about Texas and Ohio State. We'll get into that conversation, but it is a celebration because there are now officially 100 days to Texas football kicks off against Ohio State. So it's a countdown, baby. You brought it up the other day, CJ. I think you brought it up, and it was like 102 days or something like that. And I was like, man, it feels like that's still too far away. But no, 100 days. I'm down with the countdown. Then I believe my man CB starts doing the numbers. They just start doing the numbers countdown of different players at those positions who had those numbers countdown. I'm ready for it. It did 99, 100 days, 99. I can start dealing with that. That my brain I can process that. All right, so talking a lot of Texas football on the show today. Let's start, guys, with the report that came out earlier. And I saw it in a lot of different places. I believe Buck Nuts had it. The CBS Sports 247 also reported. So Fox announced that the Texas-Ohio, they had obviously the rights to the Texas-Ohio State game. And the assumption was that it would be a part of their big noon kickoff, 12 p.m. Eastern. They did not officially state that when they announced that they were going to have the game. And everybody was kind of like, well, we know y'all going to end up having it as a big noon kickoff. Why not throw it out there? Well, apparently one of the reasons that they may not have thrown it out there is because apparently a lot of Buckeye fans have rallied in large numbers, trying to pressure Fox and Ohio State to move that game to a more prime time slot, or move it to a later slot with two top five. We don't know top five teams, but everybody expects it to be one of the most celebrated and one of the highest ranked matchups of the season. Well, apparently, not only have they been advocating for this, but it says here that Buck Nuts, they learned that Ohio State was doing their part while the Buckeyes are part of the Big Ten's television agreement with Fox, which has resulted in Scarlet and Gray, the Ohio State Buckeyes, playing more big noon kickoff games than any other program in the country. Ohio State has approached the network about airing the game during a later time slot or moving it all together from Saturday, August 30th, to prime time on Sunday, August 31st. The week and a half of public silence and the absence of a kickoff time announcement has led me to believe that this is working. It was reported on the other side, on, I believe, 247, that the Longhorns blocked this request.
I got two things on this. First of all, the state representative from Ohio, his name is Tex. All right, his name is Tex. All right, don't mess with Texas Tech. You should know that. Secondly, you're buck nuts if you think that you can go in and change and pass a law that would prohibit top 10 teams from playing at a certain time of day. That's crazy. That is buck nuts. I mean, it's just nuts to think that somebody would try to pass legislation for that, Tex. Yeah. Stay in your lane, Tex.
But yeah, that is. I mean, I understand. Listen, I get why Ohio State want to move it, because, Coach, you've been up there and you experienced it. I've never been up to Columbus. I've never been up to Ohio State during a game. You experienced it actually. As a Longhorn, it is an advantage, is it not?
It's a big time advantage for them to have tonight. First of all, there's a lot of anticipation throughout the day leading up to the game, and a lot of alcohol consumed, which is going to mean a rowdy crowd, and that's what they want. They want a rowdy crowd there. They want to be prime time at night, and that's certainly not best for Texas. Although I've never been in Ohio that time of year for a noon game. I mean, I don't imagine it's going to be very cool up there, but it's not going to be cool, where we're practicing when we practice anyway. So, that's the only thing I can think is, they're just wanting the prime time to get the anticipation of the day built up and be it's kind of like, remember track, Rod, you remember what everybody went home remembering? What race did they go home remembering?
That 4x4
mile relay.
Yeah.
That's the one everybody's talking about. That's the one everybody's talking about. And that's what they want. They want it to be the mile relay of the Saturday opening day. But hopefully that won't happen.
Yeah,
I mean, it doesn't matter. But
it doesn't matter. Texas has proven they can go on the road and beat teams at any time, right? Tuscaloosa, that was a night game. Ann Arbor, that was a morning game. So I get it from Ohio State to try to build the anticipation, like you're saying, Coach. I get it, trying to build up that night game, because it does feel like night games mean a little bit more. emotions are higher, playing under the lights. The issue is there's no slot for them to be playing under the lights at that 6:30, 7 o'clock time. I know it's on Fox, but, look, I know Fox won't willingly move it to Saturday night when LSU and Clemson are playing each other on ESPN at 6:30 p.m. that Saturday. So for Texas to move it back a day, that doesn't make much sense either. And then that, Coach, you could probably speak to this as well. You like to get your team into a routine, and you don't like that routine thrown off by a singular day, whether it be moving up to a Friday or back to a Sunday. You like that Saturday game, get back home, get Sunday film and treatment, go on in and install Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, walk through, travel day, whatever it might be. That's how these weeks are set up. You don't want that bump back a day, regardless of who your next week's opponent is. And if you're the University of Texas, there's no reason for you to succumb to Ohio State here. This game was agreed upon on a specific date, a specific broadcasting network got it. And if they want to put it on at any time of the day, that's the broadcasting's decision. So, yeah, I would say no shot for Texas to move this to a time that's more advantageous for the home team, especially going on the road here. And I would suspect if this is a topic of conversation next year, that Ohio State tells Texas to shove it the same way that they're expected to this year. So I don't think it's a huge deal. And again, if I'm Texas, I'm saying, hey, 11 a.m. works just fine for me.
Plus, Rod, you can also speak to the fact that those night games, it's a long day in that hotel. It's a long day.
That's true. I think players actually prefer to get it going and get it out of the way. I did. I agree with Coach on that one.
And you get home at a reasonable hour. You're not sitting there starting at 7 or 8 o'clock at night. And you're going. I remember after a lightning delay game at BYU in 2013, when we came back and I watched the sunrise as I was coming up because it was a 2 or 3 hour delay. Plus, we were already on West Coast time. And it just threw everybody off. I don't like that.
Yeah. No, I agree with you on that, though, Coach. I think, and maybe that's why Sark. There's people see folks in the chat saying Sark prefers those 11 a.m. games. Maybe that's why. And as a player, his players already amped up, ready to go. I mean, I never slept the night before a game. I mean, who sleeps really well the night before a game? I mean, maybe that's what the Hall of Famers do. Those all pros. Maybe their nerves are just nerves of steel. They slept really good the night before games. I never really slept that good. I was so amped up, ready to go. I slept a little bit. I slept enough. But I always woke up early like a kid on Christmas Day. I'm ready to go. Get amped up, get ready to go, get my clock going, eat some breakfast, get all that stuff in. So maybe that is the thing for Texas. Thank you, Jay Lee, for the super chat, by the way. Really appreciate that. Why did OSU want game moved and why did we decline? I think we just kind of went over it. I definitely understand their motivation. And some people now are questioning, well, why wouldn't Texas want the game moved? I said, well, the same reason that Ohio State wants it moved is why Texas should not want it moved, why they should disagree, because it's an obvious advantage. This is why I think Ohio State would want it moved.
Plus,
the Sunday thing was interesting, trying to move it to Sunday altogether. Would y'all be in favor of a Sunday 11 a.m.? But then that changes your week, next week.
No, if they move it to Sunday, they're going to want it at prime time. They're going to want it in that same situation. And it's weird because we've seen those marquee matchups on Sundays before, right? LSU and FSU had that back-to-back schedule where I think one game was in Vegas or maybe the Superdome or something like that. But no, I don't like it. You've waited all year for that first Saturday in the fall, and then you got to wait again just to get to Sunday for your teams to play. Maybe I'm being selfish there, but no, play the game Saturday at 11 a.m.
Yeah.
I would also add this. If you let a school and a fan base bully the networks into getting their way, then, it's like my dad used to say, once you let that camel get its nose under that tent, you can't keep him out. And once that happens, then you're going to see more universities and more fan bases trying to pressure and strong arm these networks to get the game at a time where they want it. And I just don't think you want to go down.
That's a good point.
Yeah. No, I agree. No, I agree with that. I'm with you. I was the one because the Sunday thing is interesting. Either way, I agree with Texas. Them blocking the request Saturday at 11 a.m. our time, 12 p.m. Eastern. That actually is an advantage for Texas. in my opinion, and you don't want to lose that advantage, no matter what reason Ohio State decides to give. So I kind of agree with Sark on that one. All right, before we move on, and as we have all distracted watching Texas baseball, still up 1-0, bottom of the second right now. Longhorns up back. We'll get back into that and also get back to some of the other topics. Let's thank our first sponsor of the evening, our friends over at Vaughn Lane. That's right, folks. Vaughn Lane. If you're trying to get to any of the major Texas cities, you're trying to get to Houston, you're trying to get to DFW, you're trying to get to San Antonio, trying to get to Austin from any of those cities, our friends over at Vaughn Lane, they have the best way for you to do it. Now, it's a bit of a toss-up. Do you deal with the airport chaos if you're traveling between the major Texas cities, hoping your flight isn't delayed, and dealing with all the ridiculous things you have to deal with at an airport, the overpriced items in an airport, possible flight delays? Or do you deal with traffic, right? You got to drive to any of the major Texas cities. You got to deal with road rage, you deal with traffic, you got to deal with lost productivity while you're on the road. There is a third option, and it's better in every way, ladies and gentlemen. That's my friends over at Vaughn Lane. I've actually traveled to Houston, visiting family on the Vaughn Lane. I've actually traveled to DFW for business on the Vaughn Lane. You arrive at a luxury hotel terminal, no TSA lines, no long-term parking lots, just a seamless boarding experience that takes minutes, not hours. You settle into a plush leather seat. A hot towel, pillow, and blanket are at arm's reach. Your attendant offers complimentary snacks, beverages, and on select trips, a full meal if you would like. And if you need to relax, you can lean back and enjoy the ride. If you want to stay productive, there's a high-speed Wi-Fi and power at every seat. And while you're unplugging or powering through, the Vaughn Lane team is monitoring traffic in real time using smarter routes and efficient detours to keep your trip smooth and on schedule. And now is the perfect time to plan your fall travel. Booking is open through September. So whether you're headed to a college football game, a weekend getaway, or a business trip that needs to be done right, our friends at Vaughn Lane, they make the journey part of the reward. Vaughn Lane serves Austin, Dallas, Houston, Fort Worth, San Antonio, and in the Southeast, Atlanta, Nashville, and Memphis. Visit VaughnLane.com. That's VONLANE.com, and use the code OTF25 and you'll save $20 off your first ride with our friends at Vaughn Lane. That's Vaughn Lane, elevated regional bus transportation, and we appreciate their ongoing support of On Texas Football. All right, CJ, give me your thoughts. I know you're watching Texas right now versus Tennessee. Give me your thoughts. Opening, obviously, inning and a half of this matchup between Texas and Tennessee.
Yeah, Texas doing what it does at the plate so far. Already up to about 32, 33 pitches for Liam Doyle so far. Just now, a pass ball actually gets a runner over to second base with Will Gasparino up at the plate. So you like to see this. You like seeing anything in that 15 to 20 pitch range per inning, especially early on. Already accomplished that. If you can get him up to about 40 through 2, that means you won't have to see him on the hill all too long. And, of course, we've talked about it already. Liam Doyle, one of the best strikeout pitchers in all of the country. So Texas putting together strong at-bats. Shout out to Jalen Flores for some aggressive base run. Ethan Mendoza early on for some aggressive base running. Then Kimball Strusler knocked him in that first inning. So obviously Texas on the board early. You like to see that. And shout out to Ethan Walker getting his first start of the year, putting together 2 solid innings to start this off. We'll see how long Texas gives him. But a new face, a new arm on the mound in a big situation. Great experience for what could be a key contributor next year.
Yeah, no doubt. So thank you for the update there, CJ. The synopsis will get low. I like that. If Texas hits another RBI, I need to see CJ hit the Heisman again today. That's right. Oh, Matthew, brilliant. I already made a GIF out of it too. So we'll get that. That should be something that we throw out there, a celebratory GIF with CJ hitting the Heisman pose if Texas gets another RBI. All right, thank you for that. CB actually says Rod is a player. I think we went through that one already. Thank you, CB. Appreciate that. Preferred kickoff time was 11 a.m. Yeah, for me it was early. Earlier the better. Like I said, I couldn't sleep before anyway. All right. I want to get to the big news about the college football playoff. Brett McMurphy, he reported earlier today that the 2025 college football playoff changes to straight seeding, that the top 4 seeds will get the first round buys regardless if it won a conference title or not. He said the conference champs will still get auto bids, but are seeded based on ranking of the college football playoff ranking. He said, so this will be the final year of the 12-team playoff format, with 2026 playoff expanding to 14 to 16 teams. He said if straight seeding was in place last year, the biggest differences would be Texas and Penn State were to receive first-round buys. Boise State would have dropped from number 3 to number 9 in the seeding, and Arizona State would have dropped from number 4 to number 11 in the seeding. So Texas would have gotten that first-round bye. Would it have helped Texas? That's, a good conversation. It would have helped Texas get to the championship if they had first round bye. I'm not sure about that, but I do like the changes of just going straight up seeding based off the ranking. Top 4 seeds get the buys. Yeah.
I'm all aboard. It's exactly how it works in every other sport, right? Baseball, basketball, any other type of NCAA sport where the conference championship gets you in, but it doesn't give you that automatic seeding into a more preferable position because, again, not all conferences are built the same. Right now you have the SEC and you have the Big Ten, and then you have a bunch of conferences that are fighting for that third fiddle. It makes a lot of sense. Now, for me, as long as you get that G5, as long as you get that ACC, as long as you get that Big 12 winner in, hey, now it's time to go prove yourself just as much as the other teams in the college football playoff. But if you're far and away the 4 best teams in college football, like I think we had last year, you should be rewarded as such. These regular season games should mean something even when they're losing value with this 12-team playoff. So I love it. It's one of those things that you got to earn your bye, not something that should just be handed to you because you're the best team in a weaker conference comparable to the others in college football. So I think this is a great move for college football.
Yep. I agree with it. Coach, what are your thoughts? You agree with it? I mean, to me, I think this is actually one of those kind of no-brainers. I bet if they took a poll, you'd have like 80% approval rate on this thing because everybody kind of agrees. Top 4 seeds, that should be your advantage. Just kind of given, like CJ says, every other sport as an example.
Well, as college football has progressed into what is taking shape to be today, then the CJ. So you're right on. It used to make more sense back when there wasn't the power conferences. Right. It made more sense because there was more parity. Now you've got 2 conferences that are loaded and everybody's gunning for them, and so you've got the champion of a second-rate conference getting seated above. And not getting a bye when they're clearly not one of the best teams. So I think it's just nothing wrong with having a little common sense, and we have too little of that in this world today. Just use a little common sense, and I think that's what somebody finally did.
Yeah, put that on a shirt, Coach. Nothing wrong with a little common sense.
Nothing wrong.
I'm gonna write a song about that.
I was gonna say. Coach, read my mind. I was literally gonna say, Coach, go write a song about it. Damn right.
Hey, I had a guy yesterday come up to me and said, Coach, walking down the street, said, Coach, you looks like you've lost some weight. And I say what I always say. I say, yeah, I lose it, but I always find it. And so I thought, so I actually sat down, and it was one of the easiest songs I've ever written. It just wrote itself. All the things. You can lose weight, you can lose a biting dog, they come back. You can lose a bad neighbor, they're going to come back. But I lost you, girl, and you never came back. The one thing I couldn't lose never came back.
Damn, that's good.
It's good. I'm going to send it, Rod. I'm going to send it. It's a good one.
You came up with it like that? That is.
I mean, it just wrote itself.
Man, I don't know. That's called talent, Coach. That's called talent, is what that is. I can't do that. That's a great idea, though. I never thought about that, but it never came out of things that come back to you. But she never came back. Damn, that's a good country song right there.
Yeah.
All right.
No, I wrote it in blues. It's a blues.
Oh.
Oh, yeah. He's sad. He's sad. Yeah, it's a blues.
All right. There you go. See? I got to add songwriter to Coach's intro too, by the way. That's on me. I've learned that now. I've known it for like 2-3 weeks. I got to add that to the intro for Coach. All right. We got a question here from Duke. Duke, thank you for the question. Do the Buckeyes know who starts yet? This will actually lead us to a conversation I want to get into. because ESPN came out recently with they're doing basically quarterback positional rankings, and they're doing the rankings by tiers, and they ranked every quarterback position room in the FBS. So all of them, and they did all of them by tiers. I think they end up being like 30 something tiers. But we're not going through all of those. But Ohio State ends up in tier 4 of that. Duke and Ohio State, Julian Sayin or Lincoln Kienholz, and I'm sure I mispronounced it, and I apologize to the young man if I did. But apparently, this competition was a lot closer than it was supposed to be. Like it wasn't right, CJ. I mean, a lot of people thought, "Oh, Julian Sayin, it's going to be Julian Sayin," and now it is not just a foregone conclusion that it's Julian Sayin that's going to win that job. I do like the little stat, and you like these. We'll go through some of these too because I want to look over the Texas opposing quarterbacks they're going to face, and also we'll look at where they have Texas ranked here as well. But they give these little nuggets about every kind of quarterback situation, and not everyone, but a lot of them. And the one they give about the Ohio State quarterback is good. Go down one more about Ohio State quarterbacks. There it is. Since 2010, the only Ohio State quarterback to start at least 6 games and finish with a QBR less than 70 is Cardale Jones in 2015, and he won the national title. He was their 3rd stringer. I think y'all will remember that one. Ohio State, whoever the quarterback's going to be, it's going to be a dude.
Hey, there ain't but one. There's not but one choice to make. Just saying. That's a T-shirt right there.
That is a T-shirt.
Well done, Coach.
That's how my weird mind works,
No, you're a songwriter.
I'm a songwriter. Like just saying.
You're a punny guy. That was brilliant. Just saying. Oh man, I love it. All right, CJ, what do you know? I know you do a lot of research about college football teams prior to Texas playing them. What's the skinny on Sayin versus Kienholz here?
Yeah, the expectation is Julian Sayin will be the starter. I talked to a couple people on the road who are familiar with the Ohio State program who just said it was a little bit closer than expected, and it wasn't like either quarterback or either of the 3 when you add in Tavian St. Clair was necessarily blowing it out of the water early in spring. And again, it's a competition at the moment. Coach, you know it. When competitions are ongoing, especially at quarterback, you don't want it out that one quarterback is dominating practice or the other quarterbacks in that competition. So maybe it's just a little bit of locker room talk. Maybe it's just some coach speak, but it didn't sound like there was one quarterback head and shoulders above the other. And one thing that's really interesting is I know that a lot of folks kind of give Texas and Arch Manning double play. Sorry. They kind of give Texas and Arch Manning that question of, oh, well, he hasn't been out there. He hasn't done it yet. There's a lot of inexperience for a first-time starter. Well, at least there's been starts for Arch Manning. That's true. I know it's only been 2, but he's played in some big situations. Saw the field against Ohio State. Saw the field against Texas A&M. Three games or so. Point being, going into year 3 for Arch, it's a little bit different than what Ohio State's sitting in right now. Julian Sayin, 84 career passing yards. Lincoln Kienholz, 111 career passing yards. Lincoln Kienholz, biggest game experience. He went 6 of 17 in the Cotton Bowl against Missouri at AT&T Stadium. So there's success in limited opportunities, and then there's what we've seen from these Ohio State quarterbacks in limited opportunities. Not to say that that's going to be the overall factor in determining, changing, factor of the game or whatnot. But with this wide receiving core, you at least like to know that the ball can get out to where it needs to go rather than a prayer to Jeremiah Smith or whoever might be out there for the Buckeyes at the moment. But that's really interesting. And Ohio State, again, to see them in this tier 4, Rod, they have talent, right? Julian Sayin, 5-star, Tavian St. Clair, 5-star. But there's not been that game experience in any capacity, really.
Yeah. No, it's a good point. I agree with you on that. That's why I think Longhorn fans do feel good about Arch, that some of the growing pains, and you saw some of them, that Arch really kind of got out of his system a little bit early on with those first couple of starts. It does matter having the experience. By the NFL, it values now a certain amount of starts, right? They want kind of a 2 seasons worth of starts for a player because I do think it helps a lot in terms of overall development, having to go through all those different growing pains. All right, Matthew, can you please kind of scroll back up to the top? Because the top of this list, the Longhorns, and we'll see, obviously, Arch at one point, but I don't think the Longhorns understand how good, John Mateer is. And there's a great stat here. And they have John Mateer. This is the tier 1 here, by the way, of their ESPN quarterback rankings. And they have Cade Klubnik in there and Clemson. And, of course, there's a lot of weight on your starting quarterback. Garrett Nussmeier, LSU, Penn State, Drew L.R., Lenora Sellers on here with South Carolina, all quarterbacks who had great season. But then John Mateer makes this list as well. He was also, when we talked about it, he was considered the top transfer portal acquisition in the transfer portal. There's a great stat on here, these little nuggets they give. Scroll down just a little bit here. And they give it about John Mateer and how really just how unique his season was. John Mateer, if you go look at overall, and they talk about it right here, but there have been 14 players who have posted at least 4,000 yards and 40 touchdowns with at least 9 yards per attempt and had no more than 10 turnovers. And this is in the, I believe, college, in the playoff era, the college football playoff era. 14 players have done that. 13 of them were drafted in the first 15 picks. It says right there. And it says that 6 of them were Heisman winners. 8 other were Heisman finalists. Mateer missed his club by 36 yards last year. I went and looked it up. He had 331 passing yards lost to drops. It was the most in the Power 4. Dude, he was really good in that system. And they're bringing Ben Arbuckle over with them, who's the offensive coordinator there at Washington State. I don't think long because Washington State was out of sight, out of mind. And yes, the competition level matters a lot. It's going to be a big leap for him playing in the SEC. But he was really good. Like he was really good and a true dual threat. He had 58 forced missed tackles last year. It says 53 here. I went and looked up on, by the way, in his Pro Football Focus, they said he had 58. That he's a beast, man. Like I'm telling you, if they get the O-line together, give him just a little bit of protection, and they can find some weapons for him, he might be the surprise kind of wild card in the SEC this year at quarterback.
That's the big question. Can they get some weapons for him? Can those weapons stay healthy? Because that we talked about it all last season. I've never seen a room get as banged up as that Oklahoma wide receiving group before a year ago. So if they have some weapons, there's no way that offense is worse than what we saw a year ago. Match that with the Venables defense, and it should be a competitive team. Will it win the conference? Probably not, but it should be able to compete more so than what we've seen from Oklahoma in previous years. And the one thing about Mateer, look, I know a lot of folks like to throw out, oh, well, he only threw for 115 yards and was less than 50% against Texas Tech. They won that game. How much of that did it really impact or come from him? Well, 21 rush attempts for 197 yards. All right, well, you go play another opponent. You play Boise State. Play Boise State. You got 20 rush attempts for 28 yards. You're limited on the ground. Well, he just threw for 330 on over 70%. So he can beat you in a number of different ways. If you take one aspect of his game away, he's proven that he can beat good teams with other assets of his game. So I think he's a very talented player, and I think he should be in that conversation for being a top 4, top 5 quarterback in the SEC going into the season, all of which determine it on what OU can put around him. Will that offensive line stand up? Will that running game prove to be any sort of value for the offense as well? The one thing, that continuity with the offensive coordinator, I don't think that importance can be stated enough.
Yeah.
Hey, CJ, I have a question for you. He's from a Little Elm, is that right?
Yep.
Do you know anything about his recruiting? And there's obviously a lot of people that missed on him.
Yeah, a lot of people that missed on him. I actually went up there and by mistake, maybe I saw him in a practice because obviously that was the same high school as Terrence Brooks. And so I went up his senior year, talked to the coach up there, and I wanted to get everything I could know about Terrence Brooks. And, I watched a practice, and Terrence Brooks moving around well, right? Looking the part of a borderline 5-star cornerback. And then I'm watching the practice. I said, wait a minute, like, this quarterback's got himself kind of an arm. And so after practice, I talked to the head coach. I said, Coach, who else out here needs some college looks? And he goes, look, man, quarterback's committed to Washington State. He's the best quarterback I've ever coached. And I've been doing this for about 15 years. Yeah. I've had guys go to bigger programs. I've had guys go to more prestigious universities on the football field. He's stuck at Washington State right now. And I know that they fling the ball around a lot. When Leach was there, obviously they set some records with their offense vertically down the field. And even when he left, they kind of held on to that, that air raid style. Yeah. Said, I know that that's something that's going to showcase his talent, but there's got to be a school that utilizes him a little bit more so his talent can go towards a bigger, kind of national profile. But he was sitting there saying, man, this quarterback, just John Mateer, he deserves some sort of look. And evidently he ends up going to Washington State for a few years. That's where he signed out of high school. Now Oklahoma saying, no. It's time for you to come back home closer to DFW. So that was interesting because I always remember when coaches hit on – because every coach will tell you, yeah, we got a few guys that can play. And you always hear a few names. You see them end up signing to a few smaller D1s, maybe a couple, D2 schools. And then you see the ones that kind of resurface a few years down the road. And that was absolutely John Mateer for me. Wow.
That's a great story. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I've loved what I've seen from him so far. I think it's going to be a struggle for them against a team like Texas that is so well-rounded. But I don't know how the O-line's going to look, and I do wonder how the weapons around him. But he's going to be able to make some plays. Yeah. And I have faith that Venables is going to have a good product out there defensively. It'll be interesting to see because every list is really high on John Mateer. That's right now basically what they're saying is essentially John Mateer is going to be the best quarterback you're going to face next season, right? If you look at DJ Lagway is also in that conversation, depending on his development. But speaking of DJ, he's also on this list too. And Arch, I believe, Arch and DJ Lagway both make this. It's 1B. Sorry, it's not even a second. They go 1B, boom, drop down, just 1B. And they have DJ Lagway and Texas Arch Manning with Matthew Caldwell. I got to tell you, most of the lists now are listing Matthew Caldwell. I did a radio interview in Atlanta earlier this week, and they were asking about Matthew Caldwell as the backup. Matthew Caldwell seems to have, at least the national, and like I said, I still believe it's a competition between the two. I think it will carry over into training camp. But Coach, I got to tell you, nationally, everybody believes that move was made because Matthew Caldwell is going to be the backup instead of Trey Owens.
That's going to be. I'm anxious to see how that's going to play out because I haven't seen Matthew Caldwell near as much as I've seen Trey Owens, and if Matthew Caldwell's a backup, watch out because Trey Owens could start for I don't know what percentage, but a very high percentage of other premier programs.
Oh yeah, I'm on the record. I've said that I believe he's going to transfer because he will have a chance to play elsewhere. Anyway, sorry, go ahead, CJ.
I was going to say what's interesting is Ohio State actually just did a very similar move. They went out and got a Houston Baptist quarterback Eli Brickhandler.
Yep.
Threw for 660 yards, made the jump from Houston Baptist up to Ohio State. Quite the jump, but it kind of speaks to the need for depth at the quarterback position, need for guys who have had a few snaps in key situations. I don't know his specific game log for Brickhandler specifically, but I do know that what I just talked about with Keinholtz and Sayin is those guys combined for 200 career passing yards with the true freshman Tavian St. Clair. So production and experience means a whole lot at quarterback, and these guys, these schools at least going to find somebody who's played some level of college football as a backup or a guy that can push that room. It's becoming a recurring trend nationally.
Yep. Mateer might be the best dual threat quarterback, maybe that you end up facing, just that works well from the pocket and also can hurt you as a runner. I believe he had second. If you go look at his scrambles, he had the second highest allowed pressure percentage in the FBS, but he was number 6 in the FBS in yards via scrambles. He's just a very boomer kind of bust guy, so on a lot of plays, but he's a great wild card factor and a force multiplier. Same thing with DJ Lagway. I think the 2 top quarterbacks you're going to face are guys that can improvise and be great in second reaction and make something out of nothing. And DJ Lagway's, to me, his X-Men ability is his deep ball. His deep ball is fantastic. Now, I don't know if they got the vertical threats to be able to maximize it, coach, but that's the dude, man. His deep ball, I don't know if I've seen a better one. It's probably the best I've seen since Michael Penix had a beautiful deep ball. It was like the best in college football. DJ Lagway was like that. Might be a little bit better than Penix's deep ball.
I don't want to make the comparison, but there are a lot of similarities between a John Mateer and Arch, right? The big playability, the scramble ability, both have a very high susceptibility to pressure to sack percentage. Yeah, that just means how often are you being pressured versus how often are you going down via sack. You know, I don't want to jinx anything, but hey, Arch's number was about 26% last year when it came to pressure in the pocket resulting in a loss of yards on a sack. So I know it was only limited snaps for Arch. We saw a little bit more of that from John Mateer, but I always thought that was a pretty interesting number. I was trying to find it here earlier, but maybe something more to dive into later on this summer.
CJ, don't be talking about stuff like that now. This is all Arch propaganda and Arch hype now. You talking about, because just so you know, his pressure to sack percentage is higher than Quinn's. But don't talk about that. Don't talk about that.
Well, here it is, Rod. Of quarterbacks in the country last year to see more than 100 snaps, John Mateer was the 6th highest sacked quarterback per pressure to sack ratio, 25.8. Quinn Ewers, 14th, 23.2. So there's the comparison. And for a guy that uses his legs as often as he does, that feels significant. Now, again, we'll see if Oklahoma is able to give him some sort of wall in front of him, because they sure as hell couldn't do that last year.
Yeah. No, that's under pressure. He's really a toss-up. Either it's going to be a bad play for him under pressure or like a great play under pressure. Just talk about Mateer, because I was looking at, he has, to your point, he allowed the second most sacks, like just sacks that are attributed to the quarterback, second most of any quarterback in the FBS, but he was 4th in NFL passer rating under pressure. He is just he's a wild card, man, all over the place with a lot of these advanced analytics. And like I said, we'll see. I think he actually will work, even if the O-line isn't great in pass protection, but the weapons are going to be, I think, more important than even the O-line, because he can move and he can make plays even without perfect protection. But does he have the weapons that can, you know what I mean, that can get downfield and make some of those plays on the football? That's going to be the question. But yeah, DJ Lagway. So DJ Lagway, based on a lot of these rankings, is the 2nd best quarterback Texas is going to face on the schedule. And we talked about Arch here being ranked also in this 2nd tier of quarterbacks. The next quarterback Texas will face on these rankings is in tier 3. And it's, I believe, Taylon Green of Arkansas is considered. Now, that's the question. I mean, Taylon Green, do you believe Taylon Green is, or Diego Pavia? Pavia's in there. Do you think Pavia or Taylon Green, coach, is a tougher out for Texas? And you'll get to actually face both of them at home. That's good. You had to go to Arkansas or to Vanderbilt last year. Which one of you is a better QB? Who plays the quarterback position better, in your opinion? Arkansas, Taylon Green.
I think Diego is really. I don't know. I don't know that he gets the accolades that he deserves, because he is just an incredible competitor. And I just don't vote against a guy. Don't bet against a guy who is as competitive as Diego is, because he's a scrappy player on a scrappy team. I don't know as much about Taylon Green, but from what I've seen of Diego Pavia, he's a great all-around quarterback, in my opinion.
Yep. The Taylor Green stat is that he has the most explosive plays of any returning starter. It says it down there at the bottom. Which they had an explosive offense. Now against Texas, it wasn't that explosive. But if you go look at it, no returning QB had more explosive plays right there last season than Taylor Green. So he's a very dynamic quarterback in terms of his. And that's the thing about it. Texas will place a lot of dual threat quarterbacks this year.
Yeah.
I mean, half the damn schedule is going to be dual threat quarterbacks. Pavia, Taylor Green. We've already talked about John Mateer and DJ Lagway. That's your biggest challenge. And a big part of me wonders if that's why they're doing some of the more creative things with the front and cross-training a lot of guys like Trey Moore cross-training, Brad Spence cross-training. We know Anthony Hill. I think obviously there's a larger vision that they're trying to achieve. But I think on the micro level, to apply it to, real game time situations next year, I just think having a lot of different guys that can potentially spy the quarterback, that you can move around to try to defend a mobile quarterback might help them. So maybe that's one of the reasons. But Taylor Green's explosive. Diego Pavia, he's just I describe him as a likes to fight guy at quarterback. If I had to choose, man, that's tough. It depends on the offense. But the offense is a big part of it. What kind of offense you have. But Pavia versus Texas defense. And you know how good that defense is, guys. Man, Diego Pavia made plays and didn't really have much of a supporting cast around him. I mean, he had that tight end. They have one of the best tight ends in the country. But Diego Pavia is just a playmaker. He doesn't have a future in the NFL or anything like that. But he's just a playmaker. So it's hard to choose. Both of those guys, they both kind of fit that. They fit that prototype. I just think it depends on what kind of offense you're running. Green is more athletic, but I love that Duke here. Green is more athletic. Pavia has the moxie. Yeah, Pavia's got grit, but Taylor Green might, break off and explode a couple of explosive plays, and that could be the difference in the game. But man, in the red zone, I don't think there was a quarterback that was better in the red zone. I won't say Pavia. He had the highest success rate on red zone dropbacks of any quarterback. Great in the red zone because he can move around, and he's great making decisions under pressure. He was the most blitz quarterback, it says there too, in college football, and you wouldn't know it from how poised he was under pressure. So
yeah. It'll be fun. Good thing for Texas. You play a lot of dual threat guys. They've played a lot of dual threats in the past, and there's maybe as much speed up front in that front seven as you've ever seen at Texas, and that's saying something.
Yeah, they're gonna need it. Yeah, with this group, it's gonna be. Last year you didn't play a lot of elite quarterbacks. The last one, just throw out there, the Marcel Reed. He's in tier 6 for the Aggies out there. Congrats to Marcel Reed. I saw he got a private jet deal, private jet NIL deal. So the Aggies now got one of those too. That seems to be one of the kind of signature calling cards of a big time program. You know what I mean? Because now Ole Miss has got one of those. I don't say USC. There's Ohio State may have. I don't know. It depends on who the starting quarterback is, but it seems like only a few marquee programs have the private jet deal for their starting quarterback. Texas had one. I haven't heard of Art signing one, but I'm sure he's going to get one of these at one point too.
He probably already has a private jet. Doesn't need the company.
It's a great point. What do you guys thoughts about Marcel Reed, though? I do actually shout out to him. It is for a good cause. I believe he's also bringing attention to organ donation because in the free time, those jets, when they're not being used by big time billionaires and millionaires, they fly organs from state to state to make sure they can get to people that need them. So that's pretty good. So shout out to the young man for doing something of a worthy cause. But what are your thoughts about Marcel Reed, the QB? They got him here as tier 6. I like him, but I don't love him. And I'm not sure if he can take the next step as a passer because that's what they need him to do.
No.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Coach.
No, I was just going to simply say that, he's scary. I mean, he's elusive. His arm was not – it was just inconsistent to me. But the thing that stood out to me the most about Marcel Reed is the fact that as elusive as he is, he can't break through tackles. You can shoestring tackle him. You know, it doesn't take much effort to get him down. And so that, as opposed to a guy, you know, like Bobby or whoever, who, you know, you better bring it when if you're going to try to get him down. I just thought Marcel went down too easily last year.
Yeah. I the way I would describe his arm is just it's attached to his body. It's just there. It might sound a little harsh, but I mean, we watched what it was like last year. If he's not beating you with his legs, he's not going to beat you. He had six interceptions over the last 5 games, including 1 in each matchup that A&M played in, all of which in the SEC. So you face him up against a good defense that contains him, and you're looking at a pretty contained quarterback. Now, what he can do, and if you're not prepared for it, he will hurt you with his legs. And LSU saw that firsthand. But I would also argue many other quarterbacks hurt LSU with their legs last year. So that's kind of where I sit. You know, his best game against LSU, he completed 2 passes through the air. They went for 70 yards. It was great, but you didn't rely on him a whole lot with the arm. And I think that's one of those things. If they try to throw the ball 40 times again, in which they did against USC in that bowl game, they're going to lose a lot of games. That shouldn't be their bread and butter. The one thing that's working for A&M this year, you look at that wide receiving room with Terry Bussey, Casey Concepcion, Mario Craver, that's a pretty good room. Yeah. But they had some good receivers last year, with Noah Thomas being one of them. So we'll see. Right now, again, if he's not beating you with his legs, my thing is I just don't think he's going to beat you.
Yeah, and I did hear that they're expecting Moss to be back full strength, ready to go.
He can beat you. He's a good player.
Yeah, he's a good player. I think he was leading the SEC in rushing when he got hurt, was he not? Mm-hmm. He was like one of the leaders in rushing when he got hurt for the Aggies. So he'll be back. We'll talk about Mike Elko's comments that he had to Aggie Nation out there. We'll get into that in just a second as well. But that's basically the ranking. I believe Gunnar Stockton ends up being ranked as well on one of the lower rankings there, like one of the, I think, tier 8 or something like that. So Georgia, by the way, also a running quarterback. George Gunnar Stockton, he can move around. Gunnar Stockton gets my respect just because I don't know how he didn't drop the football when Andrew Makuba hit him. I still don't know, because he was out for about 2 seconds, like a good 2 seconds. He was out, and he still held on to the ball. That was a game. I mean, pretty much that guy should have dropped that football. Like guy should have dropped the football, but he didn't. So he got my respect. So does Texas baseball. They're up right now 2-0, bottom of the 4th, right now against Tennessee in the CJ's celebratory gift there. Yes, we love to see it. Beautiful thing. All right. Well, before we get back to update on Texas baseball, and also I want to get to those comments from Mike Elko. Let's thank another one of our sponsors, our friends over at Flat Creek Estate Winery. We appreciate them and their ongoing support of Orange Texas football. Did you know the most awarded wine in Texas is actually the vineyard closest to Austin? That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Flat Creek Estate Winery, just minutes from downtown Austin, and they've won award after award for their vintage wine, Super Texan. Ooh, nice. Super Texan now available at your local spec, so you can give it a try. Also, they had a display. I saw it at our local Central Market here in Austin. So the good word is indeed getting out about Flat Creek Estate Winery. And not only do they produce some of the best premium wines on the market, but also Flat Creek is a gorgeous venue with barbecues and wine tastings every single weekend. It's perfect for a day date with your significant other or a weekend getaway with your significant other. That's Flat Creek Estate Winery. We really appreciate them and their ongoing support of Orange Texas football and their sponsorship of the Winning Drive. All right. How about a couple of questions, and then we'll dive into the comments that Mike Elko recently had. Sarah wants to know, CJ, question for you. Who wins tonight, OKC or Minnesota? Go. You muted, CJ.
If two things. If Minnesota's bench players shoot like me again, it's going to be OKC by a big margin. If the whistles are friendly, it's going to go to OKC again. So that's the big key. And all in all, I think OKC's pretty deep.
So what sport are we talking about here?
Is it hoops, coach?
Hoops. NBA.
Hoops. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Whatever. Just saying. I'm thinking about just saying. I mean,
that's why I threw it to CJ. I already know. I was like, Coach ain't trying to talk about NBA. Cannot about that. All right, how about this one from Guadalupe Chavaria says, what's KJ Lacey's current height and weight? That is a good question. That's a great question. I don't know. I know his height. Was he 5'10", 5'11"? What is he? What's KJ Lacey?
He's probably 5'11". I'd give him 5'11", probably 180, maybe 185 pounds. Okay. I think he should be around 190 for the start of the season. But yeah, 5'11" feels about right.
Okay. Yeah. Hey, quarterback position. Like I said, I went to Vegas and I got a chance to stand next to Bryce Young and I was shocked. That's all I'll say.
Yes.
I was shocked. I was shocked.
Yeah, Syracuse Horn says that 6 foot 182 on the roster. So yeah, right in that 180, 185 range, and then you could probably subtract 1.5 inches on that Texas roster.
Hey, when I went to the combine, they accused me of lying on the media guy, and I was like, I call John Bianco. They don't even ask me what my height is because I was listed, I believe, in those media guys. I can go look at them, 5'10" or like 5'11". Man, I was 5'9", apparently on a good day because I was 5'8" 3/4 at the combine. So those media guys, depending on who it is, they don't always tell the whole truth. Nothing wrong with that. Hey, adding a couple of inches, as you guys out there know, it can mean everything.
Right. Yeah.
A couple of inches.
Just saying.
I was gonna say that's how bouncers be looking at my ID. They just go,
Exactly. See, it could, yeah. I could have been drafted a couple of rounds higher, over a couple of inches. Think about that. A couple of inches cost me a couple of rounds. It means a lot. That's why we manscape. Anyway, CB wants to know, will injuries hurt Lagway's development? I've heard there's a rumor that he's still dealing with another injury in the offseason. It's only rumor though. There's a rumor. I don't even know if there's any substance to it. But yeah, of course. I mean, injuries. Yeah, you can make the argument injuries in a sense kind of derailed Quinn's career here at Texas that he probably could have accomplished more. Injuries, if you go look at the championship teams year after year, most of the time, if you do injury luck kind of analytics and look at, how many guys or starters were lost to injury, that kind of thing, a lot of the time they have some of the best injury luck. And that's every sport. NBA, NFL, college baseball, college football. I mean, that's just part of it. I mean, hell, my career ended because of injuries. Jordan's career ended because of injuries. That's football. You got injury luck on your side. That is half the battle. You can just – and so for DJ Lagway, like I said, same thing for Quinn. Hell, we're worried about it for Arch. Like, hey, he can run, but he needs to protect. Let's say the coach preached last show. I need him to protect himself if he's going to be out there running. So, yeah, that's I think for Lagway, there's no doubt it can hurt his development. There's some people projecting him to be a first-round pick. But if he's dealing with a lot of injuries, the NFL will not only drop you down on those draft boards, hell, they'll take you off that damn draft board. Just not worth the investment. So,
yeah. I agree. Scary. Shoulder injuries in all of football, any position. Scary. Real quick before we move on, Rod, Matthew, can you pull up that Texas baseball score real quick? Because I think Ethan Mendoza just added to it a little 2-run triple that missed being a homer by about 6 inches. But there you go. 2 outs, bottom of the fourth, 4-0 Longhorns in the first round of the SEC tournament. Again, this was the SEC Pitcher of the Year. You see the 5 strikeouts, but on top of that, you see 4 earned runs. And now you see a pitching change through just 3 2/3. Texas, they did what Texas does in postseason. Excuse me. Texas doing what Jim Schlossnagle teams do in the postseason. They work counts, they get pitches to hit, and they bounce starters early getting into the bullpen. Texas up to a comfortable 4-0 lead early on here.
It's a beautiful thing. I like to see it. Yeah, it's one of those viewing experiences where you're not stressed out. And the feel-good viewing experience, you don't need to be stressed out about your team because Texas is playing really good baseball right now. All right, thank you for the update, CJ. We appreciate it. Let's get to – can we get to this Mike Elko comment, Matthew, please, if you will? So Mike Elko was speaking to some of his fellow Aggies, all right, to some of the Aggie constituents. And I got this from Carter Carrells, I believe is his name. He says Texas A&M coach Mike Elko, he was at the Brazos County A&M Club. and he said to the folks there in attendance, quote, "We are going to become the premier program in all of college football." Comes from Gig'em 247 there.
All right, you guys are older than me. Real quick, Rod, you're older than me. Coach, you're older than me. How many times have y'all heard an A&M coach say that exact same thing? Because I think I'm on coach number 4.
I know Sumlin said. I know Sumlin was on, but Sumlin actually had a reason because he had Johnny, and so maybe Summy was closer than most with it. I definitely remember hearing it from Summy. Yeah, yeah, at least twice. Jimbo. So Jimbo said it too. So that's at least 2 I can think of in my time, and I remember saying it. I'm sure RC might have said it to somebody. I just can't remember. I don't have the receipts. Yeah, I mean, listen. First of all, he's talking to his people, so them his people. So that's a family quote that got out. But I've always said the Aggies have program dysmorphia. They see their program as very different than it actually is, or how it has naturally perceived. They see it differently, and nothing wrong with that. I think there's a little bit of we see Longhorns to a little bit of burnt orange glasses. There's no doubt about that. But I think the Aggies have severe program dysmorphia, and going to become the premier program in all of college football. Start with the state. That's what I'll give Mac Brown credit for. Mac Brown gave the state of Texas a lot of credit. He used to have a state championship. He did. And people think it was silly. Hell, I thought it was silly at the time. But now that I'm older and a little wiser, I actually see the genius behind it, Coach, because his state title was simply this: you never lose a game in the state of Texas. Then you're state champion, right? If you don't lose a game, because you don't play all the best teams in the state via Big 12. You'll play Baylor and play Tech and all that. But it also included Texas OU, because you played in the state of Texas. Can lose any home games. And he used to take a lot of pride in like that state championship and talked about that. And I think for the Aggies, hell, man, just try. And of course, it counted beating the Aggies. That was a big part of it. Being the best program in the state of Texas, they should start there. And hell, that'll give you, if you can be the best program in the state, considering where Texas is, that's a hell of a place to be. I mean, you're already going to be considered a top 10, top 5 program right there. So I know they don't want to go there because they look at their program, their program, like I said, in a different light than most. But I think they got to start with, how about a double-digit win season? Let's start there. Right? Let's just talk about winning 10 games, right? Last time they did that was when Johnny was there? All right, let's just start. Let's do baby steps here. That's all. Baby steps. And I guess Mike Elko, he's talking to his people, so he's got to get them hyped up. But man, behind closed doors, I bet he's thinking more baby steps. We got to get to a certain point before we can start challenging on that. Hell, get to the college football playoff. That'd be great. Yeah. The expanded one. Get there. That should be the goal for the Aggies. The Aggies are, I think, perfectly capable. Not perfectly. Wrong words. They are capable of making the college football playoff if it expanded. They are.
Yeah. I mean, look, this might be a long-winded metaphor, but they have all the ingredients, right? If you're baking a cake, you got to make sure you have everything. And I've never baked a cake, but I know you need flour. I know you need sugar, right? Milk, I think, and eggs. Am I on the right track here? That you need some of those ingredients. At least I know for sure some of those ingredients. A&M has a lot of ingredients, right? The facilities, they got NIL, they're in the conference, right? They're kind of one of those premier Adidas programs too, so they get the backing from their, apparel sponsor, if you will. They have ingredients, yet they rush the process, and I think this is another example. They want that cake to be made in about 5 minutes, and they know that you got to beat the eggs. You got to swirl it around in the shirt. I don't know how to make a cake, fellas, if y'all couldn't pick me up here, but the point is they skip the process of what those ingredients should be building for and just look straight to the result. So like you said, Rod, I went through what was that last, 10-win season. You're right. It was 2012. And that's when they had a Heisman, a transcendent quarterback with Johnny Manziel. Since then, they've had 5 losses, 6 losses, 7, 4, 1 in 2020, COVID year. Good year, 9-1. And then they had 5, 4, 6, 5, 5, 5, 4. So you're averaging what? 5 losses a year over the last 15 seasons.
Yeah.
You're talking about being the most premier program in all of college football. Hey, let's kind of fine tune what these goals are first. I like the big picture. You want to build a nice, shiny, tasty cake, but make sure that your processes are checked off before getting to that process or to that end result.
Yep. I agree. Like start by let's go undefeated at home. Like we don't want to lose any home games. Let's start with trying to get to the SEC title game. So I just think a little bit, some realistic goal for the Aggies.
Bake a muffin. Yeah.
Make a muffin. Yeah, you can't make a cake. Make a muffin. I do remember when Charlie Strong said the cake was baked for Tom London.
See?
How'd that coach? You remember when Charlie said that the cake was baked? You had to ice it. What happened to that? I guess it wasn't what he didn't know how to bake a cake. Is what he was like CJ. What's going on with that? Cake was baked.
HEB got cakes, man.
HEB got cakes.
Well, yeah. And A&M tried that. They tried to buy one. They tried to buy a championship. It didn't work.
Good point.
But I think there's a couple of things there. First of all, when you look at the state of our program when Sark came in, about the same shape that A&M is in. I mean, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it can be done. Are their donors tired of hearing this same old, and having to dish out all that money, to make Jimbo go away? Yeah. And now you got a guy making these kind of statements, and if you don't have the money behind it, it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. But there's two things. I don't know if Mike Elko is that guy. I think he's a good guy. But does he have that in today's recruiting world? You've got to have that aura around you. You've got to be a recruiter. You got to be a guy that kids love being around and all that stuff. And he just, I've never met the man, but he just doesn't project himself that way, as a confident recruiter, a guy that's going to go in and sell himself to these young players and to their families and all those things. I don't know. And then the other thing is that you're fighting that Sark didn't have to fight. Sark has Austin to take kids out in when they come to town. Yep. In College Station, you're always going to have to go home to College Station. And so they have that against them. Of course, they, like everybody, they try to make that into, a positive thing. In other words, we're more laid back. You don't have all the crazy stuff going on in this town, and Austin is weird, but it seems to be working, having the city of Austin behind you, and then having a coach who is a player's coach, who is an elite recruiter. And not only that, he surrounded himself with a staff that is like, there's not a chink in their armor. What if there's a shortfall in the staff, where's it at? If somebody's holding us back on the staff, I don't know where it is. I mean, our players are being developed. Our players are they're doing everything right, and they're getting the transfer portal guys, and they're doing everything right. And I don't know that Elko has that kind of staff put together. But it can be done at A&M. I don't think there's any doubt it can be done there at some point in time. I just don't know if he's the guy. But
the last thing I wanted to bring up, and Coach, I think you made a great point about whether or not the backing has kind of been met with fatigue. Travis Brown of KBTX Sports out in Bryan College Station area, he made a report earlier of where the donor, you have to report your donations for public universities. Since that 2022 season, Matthew, I sent you that little graphic. Since 2022, their donations in the last 2 years have decreased $50 million from $135 million to $85 million. So I mean, on top of having to pay, we've talked about the graphic of coaches having to depart and having to pay those salaries off. You see that contributions level diminish, right? It took that massive jump up almost by $100 million from 2021 to 2022, but it's coming back down to earth. And I think that some of those folks who provide the big donations and contribute a lot to universities are probably sitting around saying, we're doing the same song and dance, just with a different price. Yeah, I don't know. Fatigue hits everybody at some point.
That's a good point. I think we know the Aggies got resources and money. That ain't their problem. All right. And honestly, they get talent. Talent's not the biggest issue. And we remember here at Texas when money, resources, and talent was not Texas' biggest issue either.
Yeah.
And though they may not want to admit it, they're right now this kind of lull for their program. I think actually they have a lot in common with Texas when Texas was going through their lull. I think it's a culture issue. I think it's a coaching issue. Maybe development. Texas was definitely development. Those are the three big issues that Sark had to solve: coaching, culture, and development when Texas got here. But the Aggies are getting talent on campus. There's no question about that, and they have the resources. I think culture and coaching, getting back to Coach's points, have been their biggest issues. And like I said, and maybe it's development. They still put guys in the league. Still putting guys in the league at a pretty damn good rate, considering they're not winning a ton of games.
Yeah.
So that's like Texas rivals right now. Texas is in kind of the catbird seat with their rivals because they're all struggling to deal with the changing landscape of college sports. The Aggies can't figure out their culture with it, and they can't find the right coach that can give them a program identity. Like that's really tough. They can't. And you recruit to that identity, right? As part of, and you build the brand around that identity. The Sooners are just having a tough time keeping up because they just ain't got the cash. Like Texas they just ain't got enough sugar daddies and sugar mamas and enough cash flow. It's just that simple. The Aggies got plenty of cash flow. Aggies they can spend money all day any day with everybody, but they ain't got the culture. And with that cash flow, as Longhorn fans know, you can have a lot of toxicity come along with that. You can be recruiting the wrong kind of players with that kind of cash flow, bringing in guys who are here for the wrong reasons on campus and not the right reasons. And that's the challenge for Sark. That's why Sark always talks about culture and talks about looking for the signs that they're compatible and signs that they're going to be compatible with the culture and that they're respectful teammates and good teammates and that he doesn't lead with NIL because he believes you lead with NIL, that can end up leading you down kind of the wrong path in recruiting. So I think for the Aggies, they got to figure out the coaching, the culture, and hiring the right coach to figure out all that. But I think those are their two biggest issues. But I'm now on the inside. I'm not an Aggie, so I couldn't tell you firsthand. All right, let's take our last sponsor before we get done today. Thank you very much to our friends over at South Point Dodge. We appreciate our friends over at South Point Dodge and their continued sponsorship of On Texas Football. Remember, you can score an easy extra point this season when you get to the point with our friends at South Point Dodge. They have over 600 vehicles in stock right now, including the all-new 2025 Jeep Wrangler. Get the real deal today and drive away in the Jeep Wrangler, a vehicle built for adventure. Plus, you can get employee incentive pricing. That's right. You pay what the employees pay right now at South Point Dodge. So think about that. You go to South Point Dodge and you get the employee discount. That's their fancy way of saying it. But essentially, you get the employee discount at South Point Dodge. You won't find a better deal than that anywhere else. That's the real deal at South Point Dodge. So score big today at South Point Dodge. You can go see their inventory in person off of I-35 in South Austin, or you can go to southpointdodge.com and go check it out for yourself online. And we appreciate all of their support, whether you're looking for a car, truck, new car, used car, trade-in. South Point Dodge is Austin's automotive everything. So check them out today at southpointdodge.com. All right, real quick before we get out of here, Glenn has a super chat, says at the SEC tourney in Birmingham, and Texas taking care of the Vols. Hashtag only UT, baby. Only one UT. Thank you very much. You're damn right, it's only one UT. You can call them U lowercase t. But right now, the Longhorns up 4-0. Top of the fifth on Tennessee. Thank you, Glenn. We appreciate you. All right, hitting us up all the way from Birmingham. We appreciate your continued support of On Texas Football and all you guys for your participation. I think we got a couple of questions that I can hit before we get out of here. How about this one? Naaman Roberts says, "Hey fellas, how do you feel about this take? Our loaded roster around yours kept Arch on the bench because a less talented team would have required a deep ball athlete quarterback." Interesting thoughts, gentlemen. That essentially, because this goes to actually is the topic I want to bring up before we get out of here. Aaron Murray, you remember Aaron Murray, Georgia quarterback? Yeah. So he's on the record for saying basically about Arch. If Arch was so good, then why in the hell was he not playing above a 7th-round quarterback in Quinn Ewers? Thoughts?
Yeah. Got to get your click quota 1. 2, you make the change, you look like a genius or you look like a doofus. And look, you just went to the college football playoff with the same quarterback. So, we've seen this change a few times, right? We saw it with Tua, we saw it with Jalen Hurts, and it worked out great. Nick Saban looked like a genius. And then you see it at other institutions, and you see it like I'll point to Oklahoma for an example because it's top of mind. You bench Jackson Arnold and you go with what you think is a 5-star freshman or young talented quarterback in Michael Hawkins, and you end up having a significantly worse offense. Is that the trade-off that you want, knowing that your floor is a team that's going to make the college football playoff? I would argue no. You have a 3rd-year starting quarterback. You've got a guy who's been there and done that. He has a conference championship already under his belt. Should have had 2 most likely if your kicking situation is cleaned up. Is that a guy that you bench knowing that, hey, you've got talent around him, he's got experience in his back pocket, and there are enough pieces on defense to mask maybe some deficiencies from the quarterback position? I would say no, especially when we know, because we'll talk about it, that the headlines, the gossip, the rumors are going to swirl louder and harder than they ever have, because who is replacing Quinn Ewers at quarterback? So I don't think that what Sarkisian did last year was egregious. I don't think that a change would have been made. If you want to argue that Arch could have put you in a better position to win games, especially late in the season, I'll listen to him, but there is no guarantee, right? We've not seen Arch go on the road, start a game. We've not seen Arch go on a road and play a team of Ohio State's caliber or Arizona State or Clemson. So what we have seen, at least, is Quinn Ewers do that for 3 years. So I don't think you make that change. I agree with Sark for not making that change. And it's all one of those, in hindsight, yeah, I would have loved to have gone back and done that because you only scored 14 points, right? That's the argument. And then, of course, the extra bonus points of Quinn going in the 7th. Quinn's a better quarterback than a 7th-round pick. We know that. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. I don't agree with the take, but in hindsight, I still don't fault Sark for not making that change. It's easy to say be a Sunday quarterback, like we talk about, but it's even easier to say, hey, 8 months ago, I would have done this, that, and the other, knowing how everything else played out.
There's a great saying we used to throw out there on 6th Street, probably about 1:30 in the morning. All right. When you're trying to get home and, hey, at that point, you just, you ain't trying to go home alone. All right. And it's always say, guys, don't pass up your for show for some mo. Or you end up with no. There was some other words we attached to that, but you get what I'm saying. The Quinn was the for show. You don't pass up the for show. Guy had already been to a Final Four. He went to another Final Four. That's the for show. Hey, now sometimes you pass up the for show for some more and it works out, but a lot of times it didn't work out. And I think in that situation, you go with the for show thing. And then because you knew you were going to have Arch. And I think for the first family of football for Arch, I think Sark's a quarterback guy. And I think he's loyal to kind of the quarterbacks. He's loyal to his starting quarterback. I think that's part of it too. I think he wants to show quarterbacks he's recruiting like, hey, you my guy, you my guy.
Yep.
You my guy, you my guy. Even if I bench you in a game, that don't mean I'm giving up on you. You my guy, you my guy. I think that a little bit of that was involved too.
First of all, remember back, OU also made the opposite move that turned out brilliant when they put Caleb Williams in the game, and he proceeded to, rip one off for 80, 90 yards or whatever.
Good point, Coach.
Yeah. So, but I do believe Sark made the right decision. Just think about this. What people don't realize is Sark is with those guys every day, probably 320 days out of the year or 300 days out of the year, whatever. He knows them. Look at what could have happened had he put Manning in and Manning fell flat on his face for whatever reason. Now, what does that do to the future of your program and to you, and we've talked about this many times. Look at where the program was before Quinn came in. Look at where it is when Quinn left. There's a thing called loyalty. And if he's hurt and, whatever, that's a different story. But he takes you to 2 straight Final Fours and brought us out of a very long season of mediocrity. And you don't just, you don't do that. I mean, there are times even I was put him in, but when you sit back and look at it, the reality of it is it could be a very damaging situation, not only for your football team, but for a young man's career in Arch Manning.
Yep. Yeah, no, I get that. I know everybody has their opinions about it, but Sark's done a great job. I'll support Sark in that decision. All right. Good stuff, guys, as always. Thank you guys for the questions, super chats. We appreciate you. Longhorn baseball right now still up on Tennessee. So hopefully that continues. Best of luck to them. Thank you to Matthew behind the scenes. He's a real MVP. We appreciate all of his hard work. Also, thank you to our sponsors. Thank you to VonLane.com. Use that code OTF25 for $20 off your first ride with Von Lane. Thank you to Flat Creek Estate Winery, flatcreekestate.com, and South Point Dodge, southpointdodge.com as well. Coach, appreciate all of the levity and the wisdom as always. CJ, great nuggets, and appreciate your expertise. And for CJ and for Coach and for Matthew, I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Until next time, Elko and Aggie.